Hello, I'm Cathie Yankovich, and I'm an author. I've been writing fiction and publishing it just maybe the last 20 years, off and on. These are my two first books published. But before that, I wrote documentation for all sorts of computer programs and how to use the programs and such. So words have been a big part of my life. I write science fiction and I write sweet romance. Difference between sweet romance and some of the others is a whole lot less mechanics of how to do it and more focus on the emotional and development of the relationship. The science fiction, I wanted to write science fiction since I first read it. And one of the things I've noticed is a lot of the science fiction is fact now, but I'm trying to write more in the idea of you're in a different world now. What happens when you have settled this world and you lose information? How do people develop things differently? This one's on an ice planet. The one that I'm trying to get going right now is basically on a planet very much like Earth, and what I'm using for material is the geology and climate of Arizona. And it's even managing to stick in copper mines because copper was used to sheathe boats and ships against marine worms and critters that ate the wood. So it's reasonable to think that there'd probably be something like that on another world. The thing that makes it science fiction instead of just, oh, this is just make-believe, is that it's on a world where the founders were divided into two groups on the ship. The colonists, who were just people, and the ship personnel who had psychic enhancements. And now you've got things that are scattered around the world where some people have psychic enhancements. The crew is worried about keeping control because now they're all there as a settlement and they have these abilities that can make people behave. But still, you have marriages throughout history and sometimes things get shared. Research is, thank God for Google. There's a lot of information out there. There are books. I'm a bookaholic, so I'm very glad that there's now Kindle because our house was getting eaten by books. What I do is you come up with a general storyline and then I do an outline. And for a while the outlines were a series of comments in an Excel spreadsheet. Well, I found a nice tool called Plotter that allows me to do basically the same thing, but it makes it a whole lot easier to move things around. And I can run three lines of plot, which would be the hero, the heroine, and something else or someone else in a romance. But figure 3 lines of plot line. You have room for comments. I don't use it to the fullest. Some people probably go deep and have 4 pages that are under each other. I just do with one because the rest of it's in my mind, and I also run into where I get 10,000, 20,000 word plots, outlines, and the stories are only 80,000 words, so they're pretty thorough. There's a lot of information in there, and you won't get it from TV. You get information on, here we're in the mining room, the history of mining, and there's books that are probably close to 100 years old. That information is there. You're not going to a second source or a third removed source or a condensed version. It's really here. If you want books, if you want to learn, this is a good place to start. If you want to watch TV, well, it's very nice, but another thing books do is they stretch your imagination. You have to put in the colors and what the people look like. I remember reading Gone with the Wind, and there was an actor called Claude Akins that I figured he was Rhett Butler. And then I saw the probably third rerun of Gone with the Wind, and Clark Gable was very disappointing. He didn't work nearly as well as Claude Akins. And Globe is a good place to live. It helps me to get ideas for books, and that benefits my readers. Globe is noted for its ghosts anymore. It's become a real destination for a lot of ghost hunters. It's been on TV, and I don't really know what's going on, but I do know, I've heard that the police who work the midnight shift see very strange things. That makes me curious. I wish I were a late night person. I've heard stories, the schools are all haunted. And I heard stories about one of the Miami schools, I'm not sure which one it was, where they had padlocks for the lockers, and they put them, at the end of the year, they put them all together and they locked them. When they came and pulled out the box full of locks the next year, they were all unlocked. There's a little ex-school down the road where supposedly a guy lost his wife and child to probably the flu epidemic of the early 1900s. And somehow he ended up as a ghost, and he's a very angry ghost. Supposedly he breaks things, and you only see the top half. So whatever happened to the bottom half, I don't know. But I was told by the gal who owns the house, she said, "You can come over and see." I said, "Sure." The fascinating one I find is that the lawyer who I talked about is regularly seen in the offices at night. Oh, and the old courthouse is haunted, and there's a murder story linked to it. They don't know. There's sounds. Supposedly, somebody was smoking a cigar, and sometimes people smell it. Yeah, I did. I really did. And that sort of leaves you going, wow. We ended up buying a house from a man who had been part of the community since before 1940. And we ended up finding out he developed irises. And I went looking for irises that he had developed. And through that, we got in touch with the family and became friends with his daughter-in-law, because the fella had died in about 1990. And the daughter-in-law told us that downtown had been divided into where even in the 1950s, where the proper women shopped and where the not so proper women shopped. And I can't remember where the dividing line was. I think that may have been Oak Street, I'm not sure. It may have been maybe a block down. But the second floors of all the buildings south of there, and some of the buildings north of there, were all brothels. All of them. And Thursday, women did not go out to shop, because Thursday morning was when the improper women, the ladies of the evening, came out and they were allowed to shop. And of course, no one was of good repute would want to associate with them. And this was in the 1950s they're talking about it. There was a saddle maker here until recently. He's now working out of his home, and we'd go in and see him, and he told us that up on top of the world, which is only a few miles away, in the 1950s, that's where the prostitution was. I don't know how many people know that because nobody else has told us that. And it's if you think about it though, you had all these miners and they're guys, and there was a need. They didn't bring women with them necessarily. So there's a lot of tales here, a lot of interesting people. We've got a small firm here that provides mining services to companies across the globe. Romance, they always, anymore, right, billionaire romances are popular. I kind of like the ones where they're more real. And having somebody fall in love with somebody who's running a local company that's doing very well. They're well off, they're just not billionaires. That sounds like a good deal to me.